As we gather together, we acknowledge that the land upon which our church and homes exist is the ancestral land stolen from the people of the Shoshone-Bannock, the Shoshone-Paiute, Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai, and Nez Perce nations, along with many other tribes whose names have been lost in history. We acknowledge that our presence here today is founded upon the exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples. With this acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to the work of dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism. We honor indigenous peoples' connection to the land and support their right to sovereignty.
Good morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Sarah Googe, your celebrant for today's service, and I am joined by seminary student and fellow booth member Laura Stavoe, who will be offering the sermon. Our spiritual theme for the month is delight, and is one of the themes explored by Laura in her sermon this morning, Delight Song, Letting the World Break Your Heart. Please turn and wave to the camera to welcome those joining us virtually, and welcome to all of you here in person. For those of you in the sanctuary, I would ask that you please put your phones in worship mode. If you're seeking something larger than yourself, or are in search of your own heart, you are welcome here. If you believe that many of the world's religions are right and true, but none is entirely right, nor does any religion have a corner on the market of truth, you are welcome here. If you believe each of us has to seek the truth in the possibility of science and religion coexisting together, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, however you pray, wherever you live, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We are glad you have joined us. I have a few announcements about upcoming events to highlight for the whole community. Today's Inquirers session will be UU History, Principles, and Sources. It's one of 3 sessions which are required for membership in Booth. It will begin after the service at about 11:30 in the Channing Room in the South Wing. Grab a cup of coffee or tea and a treat from the Hospitality Suite in the North Wing and join us. Next Sunday's Inquirers session will be a Q&A with Reverend Sarah. Our fellowship donates 25% of our unpledged plate offering to support a local organization whose mission aligns with our social justice ministries. For the month of June, it is the Community Center. Founded in December of 1983, the Community Center is devoted to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and allied population. The Community Center, or TCC, is committed to uniting the LGBT community through educational and developmental programs and providing resources. The TCC provides a safe and welcoming location for group meetings and social activities for youth groups, LGBTQ support groups, women's and transgender groups. There are many ways you can make a financial gift: online, on our website, using the Vanco app, or in person using our drop boxes. However you choose to give, you nurture our community, and we are grateful. As we enter into this time of worship, let us take a moment to breathe together. Fill your body with breath, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, and to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity for stillness, to tune in to our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep to the deep in me calling. Thou art the lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
Blackbirds singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbirds singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly, into the light of a dark black night. Blackbirds singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
Each week, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in living rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalists are also lighting a flaming chalice, reminding us that we are part of a great community of faith. We invite a child to light the chalice to recognize the children and youth in our community, our responsibility to them, and the future we're building together. As Adelaide Barker lights the chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite you in our virtual community to light a chalice, if you have one nearby, along with us this morning. Then share in the chat where your chalice is lit. With our collective chalices lit in all our spaces, we offer you this call to worship from the poet Jack Gilbert. A brief for the defense. Sorrow everywhere, slaughter everywhere. If babies are not starving someplace, they are starving somewhere else with flies in their nostrils. But we enjoy our lives because that's what God wants. Otherwise, the mornings before summer dawn would not be made so fine. The Bengal tiger would not be fashioned so miraculously well. The poor women at the fountain are laughing together between the suffering they have known and the awfulness in their future, smiling and laughing while somebody in the village is very sick. There is laughter every day in the terrible streets of Calcutta, and the women laugh in the cages of Bombay. If we deny our happiness, resist our satisfaction, we lessen the importance of their deprivation. We must risk delight. We can do without pleasure, but not delight, not enjoyment. We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. To make injustice the only measure of our attention is to praise the devil. If the locomotive of the Lord runs us down, we should give thanks that the end had magnitude. We must admit there will be music despite everything. We stand at the prow again of a small ship anchored at night in the tiny port, looking over to the sleeping island. The waterfront is 3 shuttered cafes and 1 naked light burning. To hear the faint sound of oars in the silence as a rowboat comes slowly out and then goes back is truly worth all the years of sorrow that are to come. Come, let us worship together. As we move into our time for all ages, I'd like to invite all the children in the room to come join us up front over on this side.
Hello, friends. Join me, friends. Young at heart, once again, you are welcome to join us. All right. I love that line, despite everything, there will be music. Despite all hardship and sorrow, there is going to be joy. And it is our joy to remember and list and save every moment that we can with gratitude. Our story today is a book of affirmations called My Heart Fills with Happiness. It is by Monique Gray Smith and illustrator Julie Flett. And it comes to us from the angle of indigenous folks. This is an indigenous writer. And as I read, I would like to invite us to join me in this refrain, my heart fills with happiness. Please repeat after me. Say it with me. My heart fills with happiness. One more time. My heart fills with happiness. That was a little confusing, my instructions. I'm very sorry about that. All right, let's begin. My heart fills with happiness. My heart fills with happiness. My heart fills with happiness when I see the face of someone I love. My heart fills with happiness. My beloveds, I'm not going to make you repeat the whole, just our main phrase, my heart fills with happiness. Thank you for your eagerness. I smell bannock baking in the oven. My heart fills with happiness. Bannock is a type of bread. It's a delicious type of bread. When I sing, my heart fills with happiness. My heart fills with happiness when I feel the sun dancing on my cheeks. My heart fills with happiness. I walk barefoot on the grass. My heart fills with happiness. I dance. my heart fills with happiness. When I listen to stories, my heart fills with happiness. Thank you, Ruby. When I drum, my heart fills with happiness. I wonder, what fills your heart with happiness? Drawing? Playing with mom? Video games? What else? The tablet. Yes. We love playing video games. Adults, what fills your heart with happiness? Friends. Gardening, relationships. Painting. Music. Friends. I hope your lives are full of all of these joyful things. In our religious exploration class today, in which we are inviting children and youth to join together all summer, it'll be an all ages class. Adults, you can join too. You're never banned, I promise. We are going to dive into the delight of learning by exploring something that our children are deeply passionate about: the stars, galaxies, cosmos. It's going to be exciting. We are going to, or join me in singing our community blessing, after which we will go on our way. Join me now.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
Delight. Each month, I, like many of you, spend some time considering the new theme, pondering what that word means for me. This month, the search for meaning in the word delight has led me down some unexpected paths. As I often do, I first opened my trusty Webster's dictionary. Its offerings a high degree of gratification, extreme satisfaction, something that gives great pleasure. None of these definitions worked for me. My 3 Baltimore grandsons all attend a school where they are immersed in a language from kindergarten through 8th grade. The oldest in Spanish, the twins, one in French and one in Chinese. I try to immerse myself a little each day in each of their languages through Rosetta Stone. So I decided to check the Spanish and French definitions, not quite ready for the Chinese. In Spanish, encantado. In French, enchanté. At last, a definition that spoke to me. Delight for me is joyful, unexpected, ephemeral, magical. It comes suddenly out of a gray winter landscape with an extravagance of color, scent, flavor. It makes me smile quietly or laugh out loud. It is that moment in spring when the garden seeds seem as if they will never sprout. Then suddenly one afternoon there is the first snow pea seed pushing its head up and shaking the soil from its shoulders. A month later there's the first raspberry of summer. Only one, not a handful on a bowl of cereal, just the one with that explosion of flavor, juicy and sweet, and gone an instant later. I think of magic when I think of delight. I think of Gandalf's fireworks. In my definition of delight, there must be surprise, suddenness, joy, and it, like a rainbow or a rose, cannot stay. My wandering path brought me to the Wallace Stevens poem, Sunday morning. It's a long and challenging poem, but the part that works here is the well-known line, "Death is the mother of beauty." In our Boise spring, we are reminded that transience of delight over and over, the forsythia followed by lilacs, then irises and peonies. Each bloom is a beauty, a delight. But if we awakened each and every day to each of these, to all of these, where would be delight? In the midst of sadness, the humdrum days, weariness, pain, even death, and because of all these things, we can experience delight. Finally, my path brought me, as it often does, to Mary Oliver, who wrote, "Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in a haystack of light." What a wonderful phrase, a needle in a haystack of light. So that's my meandering path. You will each have your own path, your own definition. May we all find delight. Each week, we take a little time to acknowledge the many joys among us and to grieve our many sorrows and losses, so that we may lift that burden for each other and receive the blessing of this community. A reminder that you can submit your joys and sorrows online each week via the link in our worship email and on our website. Our virtual community continues to share joys and sorrows in the chat. We combine our collective joys and sorrows every month and share them in a community-wide email. It is through our sharing with each other that we forge deep bonds of community and connection. As we begin, please delight in knowing that Steve Haycock's son Jackson turned 36 June 5th. Happy birthday. Sheila Ames and Jim Bigelow ask that we keep their son Ron in our thoughts as he recovers from heart issues. Patty Reno's brother Kenny Marshall passed away June 2nd. He was a great guy and will be missed. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to speak their name aloud into this community of love, that we may hold them with you. May the arms of this community hold all our joys and sorrows, those named and those that remain silent, close to our hearts. May we feel the grace that surrounds us and be transformed by the spirit of life and love, with warmth to celebrate our joys and the gentleness to soothe our aching hearts. Breathe with me, fill your body with breath. Breathe into this sacred space. Breathe with this beloved community filled with loving kindness. Breathe with wholeheartedness. Listen to what is calling you in the silence.
The Delight Song of Stavoe Tali by N. Scott Momaday. I am a feather on the bright sky. I am a blue horse that runs in the plain. I am the fish that rolls, shining in the water. I am the shadow that follows a child. I am the evening light, the luster of meadows. I am an eagle playing with the wind. I am a cluster of beads. I am the farthest star. I am the cold of dawn. I am the roaring of the rain. I am the glitter on the crust of the snow. I am the long track of moon in the lake. I am the flame of 4 colors. I am a deer standing away in the dusk. I am a field of sumac and palm blanche. I am an angle of geese in the winter sky. I am the hunger of a young wolf. I am the whole dream of these things. You see, I am alive. I am alive. I stand in good relation to the earth. I stand in good relation to the gods. I stand in good relation to all that is beautiful. I stand in good relation to the daughter of Taint. You see, I am alive. I am alive.
When I was a boy each week, on Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest, and he would say the holy word, and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still, and now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. And wine from water is not so small. An even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. And so the challenging thing becomes not looking for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When the holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. And now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. And now I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And read a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. And see another new morning's come, say it's not a sacrament. I'll tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird, shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how everything has changed since then. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now.
Good morning, beloved Booth community. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you in the room, with those of you zooming in from your home sanctuaries, for the earth that holds all of our stories, those we know, those we tell, those that have been silenced, those forgotten, for the spirit of life that connects us and goes by many names. Last summer, when I delivered my first sermon ever, I wove into it that my husband John and I were on a journey to get him on the transplant list after a cancer diagnosis. During my second sermon ever, it seems only fair to mention that John was transplanted on October 1 with a liver from a deceased donor. He's cancer-free, back to playing tennis, occasionally even church. Those words from Scott Momaday's Delight song, I am alive, are pregnant with meaning. We are both alive. It comes to me often in a whisper of gratitude, a prayer, an exclamation, a surprise, a delight. Delight is not a word I use very often. It seems pale next to more robust words like wonder, awe. But seeing it was the June theme, I clicked on my thesaurus, found the verb form, to appreciate, to savor. Yes. Savor brought me back to a town on the tip of Kachemak Bay Peninsula, Homer, Alaska, also affectionately known as the end of the road. I was there this past Mother's Day, a day with 17 hours of sunlight, at a conference featuring Robin Wall Kimmerer, author of Braiding Sweetgrass. Kimmerer, also a mother, a botanist, a professor, a citizen of Potawatomi Nation, spoke to a room full of writers, many of whom lived within view of melting glaciers and other heartbreaking losses. Kimmerer referenced E.B. White's famous words, I arise in the morning torn between a desire to save or savor the world. With a glint in her eye, she said, maybe writing is one way to do both. I return to Kimmerer's work often to be reminded of integrated ways of knowing and being in this world. They do not come naturally to me, having been raised in a culture that likes to categorize and commodify. Kimmerer reminds me that relationships are not about figuring it out in my head. They involve listening, even receiving. She writes, in the teachings of my Potawatomi ancestors, responsibilities and gifts are understood as two sides of the same coin. The possession of a gift is coupled with a duty to use it for the benefit of all. A thrush is given the gift of song, and so has a responsibility to greet the day with music. Salmon have the gift of travel, so they accept the duty of carrying food upriver. When we ask ourselves, what is our responsibility, we are also asking, what is our gift? Kimmerer points out, we have the scientific knowledge we need to heal the world. What we need is a new story, one that does not pit nature and humans on opposite sides, one that leads to mutual flourishing. She makes the provocative claim that this leads us not only to care for and celebrate the earth, but also to know the earth loves us back. My mom, Jane Stavoe, was a teacher, a peace activist, and an environmentalist. Often when I'd arrive home from school as a kid, I'd find her kneeling in the flower beds, pulling weeds. One afternoon, she asked me, what's your favorite flower? It was the first time I knew I needed one. Daffodil, I said. It really was just the first thing that came to mind. But I did like their creative and curvy shape, their brightness. It's fair to say, I suppose, they delighted me. Good choice, Mom said, one of the first blooms of spring. And from then on, there were daffodils in the vase on the kitchen table more often. Though Mom occasionally joined churches throughout her life, I only ever saw her kneel before a plant or a young child. When my sisters and I left home, my parents started inviting grade schoolers from St. Raymond's to their backyard, where they let them create a community garden. The fourth grade class would plant in the spring, and then when they became fifth graders, it was time to harvest. Kids would trek through my parents' yard all summer to check on their potatoes. My own relationship with gardening has been mostly aspirational. Before my twins were born, their dad and I tried growing vegetables in a small rectangle by our house. Then there were lots of diapers, lots of sleepless nights. The string beans and the snow peas ended up a tangled mess with the weeds. The roses beside the house hid too many earwigs to bring inside. My lack of gardening discipline became a bludgeon I pulled out on dreary days. You've done nothing with your life. Those twins are now 28, and I have more perspective. Still, it was a long time before I got back to the garden. John and I moved into a rental home in Northwest Boise on Mother's Day 2018. The house has a large yard with pines shading the front and a smattering of fruit trees out back. During our first weeks there, I kept discovering plants and flowers blooming in pockets of the yard, and my first thought was always to call my mom to help me identify. Then I'd remember she wouldn't know anymore. Having been diagnosed with Alzheimer's 2 years before, Mom was at a stage where asking questions made her anxious and want to get off the phone. Friends helped with some columbine, Oregon grape, a walnut tree, way too many junipers. But I knew my mom would have shared delight in the snapdragons that suddenly appeared, and bleeding hearts, which I didn't remember seeing since I visited my grandparents' yard as a child. It was one of those ways I missed my mom before she was physically gone. That fall, Mom's health worsened, and I took leave from work, flew to Chicago, at first to help my parents travel to their winter home in Maui. Then, when cancer returned and the extent of things became clear, I stayed for what ended up being the last 5 months of my mom's life. Those of you who have lost a parent will not be surprised to hear that experience changed me. Exhibit A, I somehow ended up in seminary. For much of my life, I'd made a habit of distancing myself from endings and loss of all kinds. What was the point of staying around for emptiness and grief? When I saw the writing on the wall, I'd find a way to disengage, sometimes even moving across the country. So the decision to come in close was new for me. And I learned things. I already knew that from a distance, Alzheimer's and cancer were painful and horrible. They are. But up close, I learned that even at the end, sometimes especially at the end, life is a fabric made up of many vibrant threads. Mom lost a great deal to Alzheimer's, but she did not lose her capacity for gratitude or delight. If I offered pineapple, she would say, "Oh, wow, what a treat." We'd sit out on the lanai, watching for whales, and whether we saw them or not, she would turn to me and say, "Are we the luckiest or what?" Sometimes my dad entered a room singing, maybe Sinatra or one of their old college drinking songs. My mom would brighten. She'd join in, remembering every word. They sang to one another, their eyes holding laughter of a shared secret. I always knew my parents loved one another, But witnessing their playfulness, their in-loveness, after 56 years of marriage and during such a hard time, that was an unexpected, rare gift. My dad and sisters and I loved my mom through her last breath. Afterwards, I sat with that body that carried me into this world, sat with the absence of my mother. Days later, at the mortuary, when her ashes were boxed and ready, I received them in my arms. I felt the true weight of loss in my teeth, in my bones. Dad and I flew Mom's ashes back to Chicago, and on Earth Day 2019, we celebrated Jane with so many people who loved her, including former student gardeners, many of them now parents themselves. A week later, back in Boise, I listened to an interview between Krista Tippett and Joanna Macy. They were talking about people being too overwhelmed by loss to stay engaged with the environmental movement. Macy said, "It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because say you're taking care of your mother and she's dying of cancer. You won't say, I can't go in her house or in her room because I don't want to look at her. If you love her, you'll want to be with her." Macy's words landed with a jolt. She was speaking metaphorically about the whole world. But I saw it. I could have missed that time with my mom. Such a habit I had made of trying to protect myself. Macy speaks to the fear many of us have of seeing the true extent of environmental damage and loss. Like Kimmerer, she pins this fear on the way we relate to Earth, saying, "Our Earth is not a supply house and a sewer. It is our larger body. We breathe it, we taste it, we are it. And it's time now that we venerate that incredible flowering. World is lover, world is self. And it is okay for our hearts to be broken over the world. What else is a heart for?" Kimmerer and Macy remind me that the relationship is not something I do in my head. What's mine to do is in the present, whether I'm savoring the song of a wood thrush or cradling my mother's ashes. Saint Teresa of Calcutta famously said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." Implied in that sentence is the faith that doing small things with great love matters. Not only because some suffering is relieved, but because in so doing, I acknowledge my relationship to the holy and the whole. Another Teresa, Terry Tempest Williams, recently contributed a photo essay titled, "I Am Haunted by What I've Seen at Great Salt Lake" for New York Times Magazine. The whole photo essay is brilliant. I highly recommend finding it. But she writes, "The Mother Lake is an oracle, offering us a gift of prophecy. If we will but humble ourselves, kneel at her receding shores and listen, our relationship and actions will be transformative. This is where I place my faith," Williams says, "in our collective capacity to mobilize love." This spring, finally, 3 decades after my last garden, John and I yanked out some of the junipers, planted a small patch of lavender and lettuce and peonies. It's a creative mix, just seeing what the earth wants to grow here. Gardening, I've learned, is not about becoming a gardener. It's one way of being in relationship, of tending to a small corner of our larger body. What comes of it is not all up to me, but up to soil and rain. and insects and neighboring deer who very well might make a whole breakfast of it all. I'm here for it, no matter the story. It is a holy one. We are alive. We are alive. Blessed be, and amen. I knew I forgot something. I'm supposed to invite you to rise and sing along with our closing hymn.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power and being in all. Keep the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom in time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion and heed the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardships to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. And wake now my vision of ministries clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet withdrawn by heart care.
I invite you to place your hands over your heart for the closing blessing. All that is holy, all. Wake now our senses. Grant us courage to see and love this world and each other. Let us come close enough to know we are loved in return. Let us risk delight. May it be so. Amen. Go in peace.